I'm Jane Farnham from Great British Speakers, and I'm here today chatting with the extraordinary brain tumour and stroke survivor, Sammy Taylor, one of our speakers. Hi Sammy, how are you doing today?
I'm good, thank you, Jane. Thanks very much for having me.
Oh, it's lovely to speak to you and find out more about you. It's always good to delve a little bit deeper when we get new speakers on board. So before we get into the speaking itself, could you tell me a little bit about your early life, and in particular, the point where you were diagnosed when you were 18, I understand?
Yeah, sure. So my early life was actually relatively quite straightforward and easy and quite nice, ticking along. I went to university at 18 and I put myself through university. So I was working part-time at the time as a cleaner. And that's when I really started to get headaches. And of course, when I went to the doctors, they were just putting it down to chemicals from the cleaning. And I was kind of saying that it was just getting worse and worse, like the more I did that. And I was creating different diaries and they thought it was like hormonal because of my age. And I was living with my ex-boyfriend at the time, who I was with for 6 years. And I kind of thought nothing of it and kept pushing the doctors, which is when they sent me for an MRI scan to rule anything out. And that's when they found a brain tumour, which was very shocking, but it kind of made sense to me of why I was feeling certain symptoms and getting the dizzy spells and things.
Wow, that's a huge life-changing situation. So from there, what was the journey like towards your surgery? Were you getting progressively worse, or?
Yeah, so they found this tumour in 2018, but they said it was probably found by chance and it wouldn't ever change. So they put me on a 5-year watch and wait, which meant that I just had like an annual MRI scan. And the only people that knew at the time were my mom and my ex-boyfriend. And I felt like I was relatively unfazed by it. But looking back during those 5 years, I actually did some really big things. So I moved to London and had a complete career change. I broke up with that relationship of 6 years. I travelled solo and different things. So obviously, I think in the back of my mind, it was like, okay, well, now I have got this, tumour, and we don't know yet whether it's going to have an impact or not. And because my scans were kind of stable and changed for those 4 or 5 years, I actually got myself to the point where I thought that, I had the last scan in 2018 when I was in London, and I kept putting off the results, just thinking it was just going to be very straightforward. And I remember saying to the secretary, can't you just email me the results, because it's a long way back in Birmingham where I was originally having the scans to kind of go. And that's when she said, no, Samantha, there's been a change. So that last scan, I went and got the results, and it was a Tuesday, and I took my mom, and I knew there was going to be bad news, but I didn't necessarily tell her that at the time. And they said that it had doubled in volume and kind of was now dangerously close to blocking the kind of brain fluid that controls everything we do. And so they recommended that I had the surgery there and then, yeah.
Wow, so that's quite a lot to go through. How old are you at this age?
So at this age, I was 24.
Right.
So I'd had the annual scans since I was 18, and I genuinely thought, and nobody really knew other than my mom and, like I said, my ex-boyfriend, who I wasn't even with by the time I got this news of surgery. No one in the world even knew, because I genuinely didn't think it would ever be anything to tell anyone about. And yeah.
Wow. So what happens as a result? Do you have to have surgery there and then, or?
Yeah, so I was supposed to have it there and then, but those results in that consultation where I found out I first needed surgery, it was kind of December 2018, I think, yeah. And it was based in Birmingham, and I, wrongly or rightly, I don't know, said to the surgeon, please just transfer my notes to London, because I was living in London at the time. And although that was quite rash, he said, you'll need your family to recover. Are you sure you don't want to do it in Birmingham? But for me, it kind of felt like there were so many aspects of it I couldn't control. And where I had it was the only aspect I could. And so I was like, no, move it all to London. And then in the process of moving that to London, it put me down the NHS list a little a little bit. And so I eventually had the surgery in London in June 2019.
Wow. So how do you take on physically, because it's such a physical thing, it's affecting you day to day, but mentally, how do you start trying to process that?
Oh, there's so many. Yeah, I think where I was, so I had this battle as well after the surgery, which I'm sure we'll go on to, but there were so many complications afterwards that I remember thinking, other than that monthly dizzy spell, I was actually relatively fine before. Like I didn't really have, or I think I'd managed them for so long that I didn't necessarily see that dizziness as a massive symptom. So I actually felt relatively fine before. And I think then, obviously, when I got the news of surgery, it was like, okay, well, I knew I was still battling these dizzy spells, but it felt really kind of out of the blue. And I just moved to London. I was living in a really lovely house share with, 3 other young people, and I was working in finance at the time. And it was just really fun. That time in London was really fun, like going out, and climbing the corporate career ladder. And it just wasn't what I was expecting to hear at all. And they were saying, you need to have a bit of your hair shaved. And I remember I kind of zoned out when they said as well, you'll need to take time off work.
Yeah.
And in my head, I was thinking, I've worked so hard. I've done these like accounting exams. I was like 1 exam away from being a chartered accountant. And I was just thinking, I just can't even like comprehend. Like I just can't take the time off. Yeah, I just can't take the
Not
time off.
reality for you.
Yeah, it really wasn't.
So how did the surgery go? How was the operation?
Well, it was. Well, it went really well. I'm tumour free, which is like the good thing. So people ask me this question, I'm like, how do you answer this? Because I think, yeah, it went really well. I'm tumour free, and there's no more.
But obviously, it took a lot of time to heal
Yeah.
and recoup and get back on your feet. I mean, that must take its toll.
Yeah, definitely. I mean, during the surgery, I actually suffered a rare cerebellar stroke. So it's only the 2% risk of people that suffer that stroke. It wasn't anything, the surgeons before said to me, don't worry about your tumour. It's like the best brain tumour that you could have, even if that's like a thing that people say. And it was really low risk. And I fell into quite a high risk category afterwards. And so I woke up unable to see, unable to speak, unable to write. I suffered permanent facial nerve damage as well from that. And I remember when I woke up from the surgery, I was saying to the nurses, I can't see, I can't see. And when I was saying that with such panic, I was like realising that I couldn't speak either. And the nurses were like, don't worry, it's just the anaesthetic, it'll wear off. And I was like, no, you don't understand. I was like, I really can't see. And nobody knew what had happened. Nobody knew why it happened. They kind of wheeled me into intensive care. So all these kind of, before I was saying to my mum and my sister who knew at this point, it was like, oh, I'll be back home in like a few days. We were like planning all these things. And I was in intensive care then for 10 days, unable to see. And it's just one of those things where just no one expected that at all.
Really scary.
Yeah.
And then how long did it take you to get back, to where you were, in the sense, I'm sure that took a lot of time with your family. Did you have to take off a lot more time off work than you thought?
Yeah, I actually, and I went back to finance. So I took a year off work. And then when I was due to go back to work, we hit the pandemic. And so because I hadn't been in the office, I wasn't able to go back to the office because I hadn't had that return to work. And so I took another year off work. So that was 2 years. So I was also recovering straight away. I had daily physio, and so I was learning to walk again and things. And that was kind of slow until it got to the point where I just really missed my independence and missed being back in London. So after 5 weeks, where it was to the point where I still wasn't fully feeding myself or walking or anything, but I had made the decision that I wanted to go back to London. And so my physio was obviously like, okay, well, we just need to get you able to kind of stand on your own and just walk in case you need to go to the shop and things. And I think now, looking back, when I moved, saying it out loud is like, okay, that was way too soon to go back. But I do think it had a massive impact on my recovery, and that I recovered so fast because I needed to. So being independent was good in that sense as well, as so being forced to do things yourself.
I just can't imagine what you went through. You must have been absolutely terrified. I mean, to lose your eyesight, not be able to walk. I mean, these are basic things that we all take for granted day to day. And you thought you were almost going for a routine surgery, and then to come out and to be so unindependent and reliant on other people. And it's so amazing to see you looking so well and healthy now. I mean, you must have a huge toolkit to help you overcome these incredible challenges that you've faced. So what sort of lessons can you help, with other people overcome, do you think? I mean, because your resilience is just, there for all to see.
Yeah, I think my biggest thing is kind of not seeing any event now and not judging it as good or bad. And I know that's really hard in the moment to actually do, but I realise this more and more lately. So an event on its own, 3 years ago, had you said everyone, oh, she just had a brain surgery, she just had a stroke, she's had this, that and the other, that is terrible. Like that, those are terrible things. But actually 3 years later, when you know more of the story, it's like, actually, I feel, this is so cliche to say, but I think I'm genuinely more happier now. And I think that comes with like this purpose and having, a reason to help other people, and the work that I'm doing as well. So I have my own business and speaking and things, and it's all centered on resilience. And it's almost that event in isolation is terrible alone, but it's when you learn more of the story. And it kind of has made me realise that anything that happens going forward now is just not good or bad. It's just an experience, and it's like needed to kind of get you to where you need to go.
Yeah.
My other thing, my biggest lesson is this is something I learned when I was preparing for brain surgery as well. I'm recovering from it. Is that you can always get through a difficult, like today, as long as your career compelling tomorrow. And so I'd created my own business, which started as a blog. But it was almost sleepless nights, or anytime I was anxious, it was a really good distraction, and it was a reason to kind of keep going, and with this like bigger picture that it was going to help someone one day. Like even if one person read my blog, it was just going to help them, and which it does now. Like I get messages from people that are just going through facial paralysis, or just going through like brain surgery, that are desperate for answers, and it's comforting to them. And that's what I needed as well. Like 3 years ago, I was like, trying to desperately find someone that I could relate to as well. So those are the biggest things that I would say.
So tell me about your speaking work a little bit. I mean, how did that get going? Has it come off the back of your blog?
Yeah, it has. And so I'm in the brain tumour community based on like my business. So I sell like motivational quote jewelry and like t-shirts and things, and there are books on there as well. And off the back of that, there's a community of people that are, overcoming like strokes or brain tumours and things. So it started just making appearances to their events, really. And I think the reason it gives me such a buzz is that 4 years ago, I just didn't even know that I'd have a story worth like sharing. And it's almost the point where it just makes it more worthwhile to be like, this happened to me, but to help someone else with it.
Yeah.
And so now I want to share it for that reason.
And then tell me about the topics that you cover. I mean, obviously resilience is a big key area. So how do you help corporate businesses sort of I'm sure your story is hugely inspirational, but obviously help them inspire their staff.
Yeah, definitely. So I speak about mental health as well, resilience, overcoming adversity, and just like women's health as well, and speaking about kind of wellness topics as well. And I think that there's always, I think other people feel inspired. Right? I don't like to say like I'm inspirational, because I think everyone's got like a story, but it's just that the little things that I've learned on the way in mine really, like, they do resonate with people, I guess, because it's all just like you said before, where it's just you don't necessarily know what's going to happen to you, and different things that kind of happen in life, and it's just how you kind of manage those and react to those, I guess. And yeah, it's building that toolkit, like you said, in order to be able to do that. And that applies to any life problem as well. So I think that's why it really resonates with other companies and people that, ask me to speak.
So it's relatively new, really, to the speaking. You're relatively new to the speaking world. What gives you the biggest buzz out of it? Because it's quite nerve-wracking getting up and talking to a group of strangers about your journey, but then you must get a buzz.
Yeah, definitely. And it's so funny because I designed jewelry that has a meaning, and this necklace that I'm wearing is for that reason. It's based on the belief that night follows day, and it's whenever you've got like a really daunting or nerve-wracking thing, like a job interview or a first date or a speaking event or something, that it's like, so it is nerve-wracking. And I think, like I said before, it's almost, I've now got this story that I didn't think I'd have, I didn't think I'd even have to tell, and it just makes it more worthwhile to me to be able to share lessons and stuff that I've learned along the way that I don't even really necessarily think have that big of an impact on anyone. But it's when people reach out to me and they find my blog or speaking and they feel really inspired by something that I've said or something that I've done, and it gives them the courage to kind of face their life challenges. And that's what gives me a buzz, to be honest, and that's what keeps me going, because I'm like, actually, like, it has touched that one person's life, and so you want to then reach more people, I guess.
Well, you are absolutely delightful and really authentic. I've loved our little chat today. Thank you so much for taking the time to talk to us, and I'm really looking forward to putting you in front of our clients.
Amazing. Thank you so much. It was lovely to speak to you as well. And yeah.
No, thanks, Sammy. Now, if you'd like to book Sammy to speak at for your organisation, simply contact myself or Steve at Great British Speakers on 01753 439 289, or you can email bookings@greatbritishtalent.com.